My first experience with Doom is, I'm sure, like most everybody else's. I grabbed the mouse and keyboard and I typed in a code. The first thing you asked was, how do I get endless ammo and all the guns? And then you just ran around and had a good time.
I'm Marty Stratton. I'm the executive producer of Doom: The Dark Ages.
And I'm Hugo Martin, the game director on Doom: The Dark Ages. It's a classic franchise, means a lot to a lot of people. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's about tons of action, always feeling aggressive, moving, on your toes instead of your heels, like you might be in other more survival horror games. It's unique in that way. The scariest thing in our game is you. And I think so long as we're doing that, then it involves shotguns and some form of a chainsaw, then it feels like Doom.
Yeah, it's one of the most well-known franchises in video games. If you go all the way back, it's got, the classic versions of Doom and Doom 2 from the original team at id here back in 93 and 94, and then took a bit of a break and did kind of a more horror-themed version in 2004 called Doom 3, and then came back and rebooted the franchise, us working together in Doom 2016, and then made Doom Eternal in 2020, and then obviously Doom: The Dark Ages. Each of those really is focused on kind of having its own space. Each one feels very different, but always very Doom.
People kind of see it as a third part of a rebooted trilogy. You had the Doom 2016 and then Doom Eternal in 2020. What's different this time around?
It's more grounded. I think that there's a little bit of similarities, obviously, between all the Doom games. There's like a through line, and among them is movement as defense, movement as offense. And I think this time around we slowed down the projectiles, so they sort of form like a maze for the player to weave between, and that is very much like the original 1993 Doom was. That's where that idea came from. And we're still always just studying that game. We're feel fortunate to be able to make a Doom game. We just want it to live up, to the traditions of the original Doom. And so yeah, I think in that regard, it's very similar.
And with each game, we've actually been able to really increase the scope and scale of the game in many ways. So, if you've for players who've been with us through 2016 and Eternal and now Dark Ages, one of the things, even on the story and narrative side, we've said we've taken the story out of the codex and put it into the cutscenes. So if you're a player who likes, really incredible set piece cinematics that tell this kind of summer blockbuster story, it doesn't get too deep and emotional at all, but it is really, really good fun from a cinematic perspective, and lots of exploration throughout the game.
Yeah.
It's a really, really meaty game, much bigger than 2016 or Eternal, and just tons of great spaces to explore. The game takes you to worlds that you've never seen before in a Doom game.
Rolling back to the medieval setting, that sort of feels like a bit of a departure for the series. And how did you land on that one?
Well, it's medieval sci-fi. It's kind of our own, fantasy game. We wanted to make sure that Doom, stood out from the competition on the shelf. We don't want to look exactly like other fantasy games, but the tone is definitely there. So when we made 2016, we came up with a fiction for the Slayer's past. We were getting a chance to restart the franchise, and like most, good IPs, usually you want to give your heroes like a background and a history, and if you're fortunate enough and the fans like what you did, then eventually you'll be able to explore that history in like a sequel. And so from the beginning, we wanted to make this game of his time with the Night Sentinels, and we always thought that like a medieval Doom would be really fun. So yeah, that's where it comes from. This being a prequel to Doom 2016, we get to see him in this setting in his time before we found him on Mars in 2016 in that sarcophagus. We don't end with you ending up in the sarcophagus, but there is some, Easter eggs in there, where you can see how it all unfolded. This is literally like a game 12 years in the making.
Yeah, going all the way back to 2016, the stuff when I say, take the story out of the codex and into the cutscenes, the codex was like this written, lore that existed in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and you started to see more of that stuff in actual world building in the spaces and in some other types of cinematic sequences that we did in Eternal. But But yeah, that kind of medieval flair has always been in even in those original kind of writings that were in 2016.
Why is it important for you guys as developers to attract new players to a series like Doom?
I don't think it's about necessarily new players so much as just making like something that everyone can enjoy. That's never not our
Wants to
goal.
play, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like even with 2016, we're always just trying to reach as many players as possible, and same with Eternal. So I think the only thing about innovation is that you can reignite interest even in your most hardcore players because if they loved the last one, they probably have put a ton of time into it. So while there may be a little bit of a learning curve there, which can be, painful. We've gone through this two times now. We've innovated two times. Like there was concern that 2016 wasn't like the original Doom or even Doom 3, and then so at first there was a lot of it seemed somewhat divisive in the opening month, and then once people got used to glory kills and the fact that there was like a story in Doom, they got more comfortable with it, and it's not so much where you start as it is where you land. And then same with Eternal. So, but if we kind of just give them more of the same thing, then I think it's not so much attracting new players as actually like in some cases you run the risk of them your core audience potentially losing interest. There's like a game. There are games like Elden Ring that are like turning tipping points for people. Like I think Elden Ring, not because it's fantasy, but I reference it because that was clearly the game that there were a lot of people standing at the doorway of the FromSoft games, and they felt like they weren't quite ready, but they wanted to because they had heard about it, and I'm a huge FromSoftware fan, and it was clear through the marketing and through the design of the game that this seemed like this was a good time to join in, that this would be their first FromSoft game, and or Soulsborne game, I should say, and that's how we think of Dark Ages because it really is. I think that by grounding the combat um, and setting it in this fantasy world, which we love, again, we wanted to do this from the beginning, but like, I think a fantasy setting is inviting to a lot of people, and I think the medieval close quarters combat, all of that sounds appealing. I mean, that's basically what we're seeing via the response to the marketing content from the very beginning when we announced the game. And then, yeah, from the design of the game too, it's true to Doom. It's more grounded. I think they think of Doom, the original, as a good, enjoyable shooter that really anybody could play. I really want to just reassure fans that like if you want to play the experience the way it was intended, then don't mess with the sliders. But they can be changed. The difficulty can be altered at any time, and then also you could just alter that difficulty at any point in so many different ways using the sliders, and that's very much I think it's even more nuanced than 1993's Doom of typing in a code because maybe you don't want to have all the guns or maybe you don't want to have unlimited ammo. You just want a little more ammo. Well, you could do that in this game.
The audience we serve is that little bit younger, and it feels like there's a bit of a struggle to pull people away from certain titles. These, your Call of Duties, your Fortnite, even things like Roblox. We find that younger gamers are sticking with those. For those people, what would you say to them to get them to give Doom, the Dark Ages, a try?
I think it can fit into to their to their gaming habits. I think that's the nice thing about a game like Doom is, we know people have like their kind of forever games, the games that they play every night or they're playing online with their friends in a social setting. We both have kids and have seen that type of behavior, but a game like Doom really can fit into that. You can jump in, have a really really good time on your own terms. Have a great fun again, action-packed summer blockbuster story and just some really great fun combat. To play Doom, it doesn't have to become your obsession for the next 2 years. You can get in there, play it, have a great time, complete it, have a nice, satisfying ending to it, a very cathartic experience throughout, and enjoy it in the course of everything else you're playing and all the other great entertainment options that are out there.
Expedition 33, is doing so well. One, because it's an amazing game, but two, people understand that it has a beginning and an end, you know, and that's and it's highly polished and fun, and I think that's yeah, that's a good thing. I don't know that like every game has to be, nobody thinks this, but like, you know, has to be a live service game.
There's obviously been a lot of talk about price rises and what have you recently with gaming, and with example of forever games like Fortnite, a lot of those are free, and with something like Doom, and there is that tendency to measure value in terms of the number of hours you'll get out of something. Do you envisage that becoming an issue for developers like yourselves who make these really high quality kind of blockbuster type games?
Ultimately, it's a it's a market, so players will determine what they want to spend. We see free to play games, and they're certainly not. They are free to play, but there's a lot of spending happening in a free to play game for a lot of players, way more than the 50, 60, $70 that we're asking for people to play or people to pay for these campaign experiences.
Do you see it being here in another 30 years, and what do you think it will look like?
I don't think it's going anywhere. I can't imagine like, you know,
Hope not. Yeah.
entertainment and pop culture without a Doom.
Yeah, as far as who knows? I mean, it's hard to look 5 or 10 years ahead in games and know, just know the advancement that we're going to see. It's really an exciting time. So to think 30 more years of games and technology and what we're going to be playing and experiencing in that time frame, it's unbelievable. But I mean, I think like kind of Hugo's saying there, and even talked to earlier, looking back, the first thing he did was play, and the team did was play the original games and found just tremendous inspiration for this game. So, you do hope that, in 20 years or 25 years when they're planning Doom, whatever version it is at that point, they're looking back on this stuff and finding similar inspiration. And there's just so much that there is so much just great fun in the brand, always has been, from the characters to the weapons to just the feel of it, just the way the game makes you feel when you play it. That unless something massive changes with humanity or something like that, I would imagine people still want that ultimate power fantasy 30 years from now. However that takes shape, Doom can still be a part of how
That's
that comes together.
that's the thing. Like when you think about it, it's like, will there ever be a time where people won't want an experience where within, I don't know, there's kind of a limit, like 5 to 6 minutes of the time the game began and you press start, you're just going to be a one-man wrecking machine inside of this video game world. Like I think people are always going to want that, and that's Doom at its core.